Attention everyone, we're starting. Okay. Hello everyone and welcome to StuySplash 2025's Impact Panel. I'm Weifen, Director of Impact of StuySplash 694, and today I'll be your moderator, and we have three amazing panelists joining us today, and would you guys please introduce yourselves to our audience?
All right, I'll go first. Hi everyone, my name is Philip Blue. I am from Austin, Texas originally. I was on FRC 2468 Team Appreciate. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself with FIRST. I did FTC for 1 year as a freshman. I did FRC for 3 years from sophomore to senior year. We did a lot of community outreach initiatives. We won at the time, it was called Chairman's, now it's called Impact at the regional level. When I was a sophomore, we won Engineering Inspiration in St. Louis. And then when I was a senior, we won Impact Finalists. So really, obviously, Impact is not about the award. It's a platform that helps you expand your initiatives. And I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about some of our initiatives as well as how to be a successful Impact team.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm an alum and mentor for Team 321, the Robo-Lancers out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. When I was a student, I started 321's outreach work, and it was then called Chairman's Award submission process, and worked on it all the way to the Hall of Fame in 2023. Now that we are in the Hall of Fame, I now judge Impact at the Mid-Atlantic District and am the vice chair of the Hall of Fame committee.
I'm Howard Cohen. I'm an alumni of Team 25. I joined 359 remotely from Hawaii. So, you can do this from anywhere in the world, really. And we restarted doing Impact in 2022. And it's been a wild ride trying to see us kind of go from a Hall of Fame team, stop doing this, and then restart doing this, and trying to achieve the same and greater success.
Wow, okay, so all three of our panelists already have made very bold statements on impact. So I feel like now they're undermining my Q&A. But anyways, for those of you who don't know, but probably already know, the First Impact Award honors the team that best represents the mission of FIRST and acts as a model to other teams. And this is for all of my student impact presenters out there. We're usually the ones suffering from the pressure of Q&A, but today we get to do it to these guys. So I want a lot of questions during this session, all right? But of course, I'll be asking the first question. So at the 1992 US FIRST Robotics Competition, Dean Kamen, founder of FIRST, commented on the significance of the Chairman's Award. He said that the most important prize coming from this competition wouldn't be the trophy for the one that achieved the most points. It would be the Chairman's Award. What are each of your thoughts on that statement?
Let me go first.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of lessons that you can learn in FIRST, and some of it is, how to solder, how to program. But a lot of the softer lessons of being able to communicate, being able to speak, being able to share your ideas is probably the strongest lesson you can learn in FIRST. I have students that come back to me almost every year that say, right, working on the Impact Award was more valuable than any class I took, anything else that I learned in FIRST, because it's helping them in their career. It's helping them get that interview. It's helping them succeed in the interview and get the job. It's helping them in communicating with their friends, communicating their ideas. And a lot of students, when they start this, they're not good public speakers, and it's no fault of their own. We're never really taught how to public speak in a lot of our classes. And some of them, it's like you gotta get a jackhammer to break them out of their shell, and once they're able to do that, they're able to communicate.
In the same vein, FIRST is more than robots, and it's more than just a single season of what you produce on the field. It's about changing your community and changing the culture of where you're from, to kind of just accept and have a better emphasis on STEM. And I think something that we forget a lot in robotics is the soft skills, like Howard mentioned. I have students who literally would cry when they did public speaking, and now they're some of the best speakers I've ever had. Project management, like being able to handle a task in the time frame that you're supposed to handle it, is a skill you'll take with you regardless of what industry you go into. Those are the skills that we kind of forget about but are incredibly important.
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer this in two ways. So, like, first is like why impact is important for why we do it, and then second is like the impact of like people who actually work on impact. But like, I mean, I'm a big sports fan, and like I have plenty of friends who like played like high school and collegiate like basketball, football. But like if you just think about it statistically, like not everyone can go pro in a sport like football or basketball, right? It's like 0.001% from everyone who plays in high school. With like FIRST in robotics, everyone can go pro. like becoming pro is just becoming an engineer or becoming like a project manager, becoming a product manager. And like you can really learn skills from first as a high schooler that you will literally use in college and in your life, right? So like I come from like a low income background and I'm like the first engineer in my family. I literally never would have even known that engineering was a profession unless like I had the opportunities available at my middle school and then doing it in high school and then thus studying mechanical engineering in college. So like you just don't know where it's going to take you, and the fact that we get to do a demo to like kids at a community center, or we do like an FLL camp, or like whatever the case is, you don't know the downstream inspiration, also therefore impact that you're going to have on that kid's life just because you expose them to first. And then to what Howard and Meghan said, like for the kids who are actually working on impact, like yeah, it's really cool that we have the ability to do like robotics and like technical skills, but even if you don't become an engineer, you're gonna need to know how to communicate, how to public speak, how to write, and those are the skills that impact gives you, right? So it's like pretty universal, and that's why I think if you're in this room focused on impact, you actually have like a pretty good advantage, like compared to your peers, because I'm not saying they don't care about it, but you get to like take skills that they may not prioritize right now.
Any comments from our audience? Alright, then I'll continue. So the reasons that each of you guys just listed, is it like part of why you came back to your teams to mentor impact? Because it's like a pretty niche part of first mentoring.
Okay, yeah, I'll start. So one of the big things that I like with mentoring is you're able to help, bring people to realize, sometimes a lot of the career trajectories that people think are in first may not be what you want. And the way I tell it to parents is, if a student can figure out in their years of high school that, hey, this is a career I don't want, but this is a career I do want, you just saved 1-2 years of your life in college. You just saved thousands of dollars of taking classes in college. But being able to help direct kids and being able to help give that back is a very meaningful thing to me, because I know I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for someone else taking their time and helping me on my journey.
Selfishly, I love impact because I love hearing about what people are doing. I think the work that a lot of teams do in their communities is incredibly admirable, and to see young people really interested and engaged in bettering their community is something that I love to see, and it kind of makes me feel like I should keep going. And another thing is that I just want to be the mentor that I needed when I was in school, because when I was a student, the team was a lot different. We had one coach, and for 25 kids, so it was tough. And for the last 13-ish years, I was the only female mentor for 321. So just knowing that I could be someone that I needed, like that looked like me when I was a student and didn't have that, is really important to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much more else to add, but like, it's like the golden rule, right? Like you want to treat others how you want to treat yourself. So the fact that people invested time and like energy into me when I was a student, like that, like I said before, really impacted my life. So I want to be able to give back like the same mentorship to people that are going through what I went through. I don't know, I'm 25, so like what, 8, 7, 9 years ago, something like that.
Meghan, I know that you started one of the outreach initiatives for your team as a student. I was wondering like how that felt for you and how like you decided to push forward with it, especially when your team didn't do as much outreach.
Yeah, so I started the first ever outreach event for 321, so the culture back then was very much just like, we build a robot. I'm pretty sure we didn't even know what judging was. So it was just like, build a robot and we're having fun together. We didn't really care about the rest of the competition. But in 2011, all Philly teams were funded by a single grant by the Philadelphia School District, and in 2011 that grant ran out. We were the only surviving team. The rest of them disappeared overnight. We were able to survive because we had funding from our alumni association. So we wanted to kind of try to figure out a way to help bring other teams back, and we thought maybe we could do a fundraiser. So we partnered with Drexel University to host an expo, so our community could see like what you could potentially do in robotics as a student, and then in college, and then career-wise. So we had like labs and stuff there so that they could see all of those different steps. And I think there is when we realized that we wanted to do more of this. Like, we saw students' faces light up learning how to code for the first time. And we realized how important access to these programs were, and that really was the pivotal moment where the culture shifted for our team, where we wanted to do more outreach work and we wanted to be able to share with what we were doing with our community. And that kind of was just the catalyst of more events, more talking with politicians and working with other teams to kind of bring STEM to the forefront of Philadelphia. And yeah.
Yes, Naveed?
So like this question was based off of the fact that you started this initiative as a student. So going off of that, what do you think is, to anyone, all three of you, what do you think is the right balance between mentors initiating an initiative versus a student? And like, what is your opinion on if a mentor is the one taking charge?
I think it's whatever works best for your team. What is the balance of your team of how involved mentors are versus how student-led your team is. But I think what's most important out of any initiative is that there's somebody that's passionate about that specific initiative, because if no one's passionate about it and they're just doing it because it's a legacy event or a legacy initiative, then you're not getting the same out of it as you would if you're actually really engaged into it and think it's a good way to spread show off your team.
So I go back to what First has said about mentors and their role on teams, is that the goal is to get people interested into STEM. The goal is to get people to want to do this more. And sometimes if that's an adult leading the way or a student leading the way, that's okay. If there's 5,000 FRC teams, there's 5,000 different ways of doing this. No one way is right, no one way is wrong.
Yeah, completely agree. And like, Weifen knows this, we never explicitly talked about it, but like the way I mentor is like I try not to chime in unless, they need me, right? Like I'm not, if she asks a question, what do we think of this? I'm not gonna immediately unmute. I wanna have everyone else in the room that's a student give their input, and then if they say, Philip, what's your thought on this? Or if I really think that potentially, there's a way of thinking or an idea that they haven't talked about, then I might chime in. But I kinda want you guys to do it first because it's your project, it's your initiatives, it's your impact that you're creating. And we're just here to help you guys as you need.
Oh, yes.
Once you graduated high school, how were you able to build up the program enough to allow for future generations to carry it on before you could come back and kind of take back over or continue to help out more?
I did the wrong thing and I didn't leave. So I stayed in Philly for school, and because the program of outreach was so young, I was called back a lot to mentor, and that's probably not the best for a student's growth. So I definitely spent more time doing that than doing college stuff, which I don't recommend. I think you should take at least a year off. But because it was in the beginning stages and because it's work that I loved so much, I came back and I helped the next group of students kind of take on the leadership roles that I left behind and work with our coach to kind of figure out to build that foundation for the other students to come in and do the work themselves. And then as a mentor, when I transitioned out of the peer-to-peer, even though I was in college, it's a lot. I took a step back, so the students were the ones leading the work, and then you're supporting them, but you're no longer in charge of the work.
There seems to be this cyclical thing of teams remembering how to do something, then forgetting how to do it, and then relearning how to do it over and over again. And I think one of the most important roles of a mentor it's to not let that happen, right? It's to carry over that institutional knowledge, whether it's the mentor themselves doing it or making a process for the students to be able to do it and just making sure it happens. And for me, I kind of did a similar thing to Meghan, but not as much. I did work with them, but not specifically on a lot of the stuff that I worked on prior to. But now that I'm more established in my life, I have a career, and I'm able to do this a little bit more on my free time, right? I'm able to kind of pick those things back up. But at the same time, as a student that's graduating, you need to be ready to let go. You need to be ready to hand over that initiative, that project, that task to the next generation of your team. And if you're not able to do that, right, you need to start building those systems now, today, while you have time, so that it's ready when you go.
Yeah, I definitely didn't have that challenge because my high school in 2468, I didn't start Impact, definitely didn't end Impact. But when I left, there was, when I was a senior, I was mentoring a freshman and a sophomore to take my place, and those people were just as passionate about it. And I don't know if you guys are freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, whatever the case is, but obviously, you know, to Megan's point, when she started, it's probably a little bit harder to get some momentum behind it, but you know, making sure that you do like some level of peer mentoring or like bringing someone on board so that way they know how to, you know, take it over when, if you're the lead, leave. You know, I think that's just like a pretty simple way of at least one person continuing it.
Oh, so many hands, yay!
I was wondering, I was wondering how, what is your role in like making sure that the students don't relearn the knowledge that the previous students already have learned?
So one of my biggest things is holding on to the knowledge that we have. So whenever we go to a competition or event or whatever, and we get questions, we write those questions down. And then maybe not immediately, but later on we'll go back to those questions, get them to answer them, polish up those answers, and maintain them. So whenever a student wants, they can actually go back and look at every question we were ever asked and learn what did we say, how did we say it, and did that information change, yes, no? And if it didn't change, all right, let me understand what that context was.
I would also say that like, there's something we have to do too for 694. But like, I don't know if you guys are like new impact teams, old impact teams. You guys have like won 5 impact awards. This is like, you know, you're trying to win an impact award. And again, right, I'm using award as like a comparison, not because it's the goal, but like, if you're starting impact, you're like realistically like you may not win the impact award your first year, right? And again, that's not the point, but like impact is supposed to be something that is initiatives and progress that you see year over year over year. So like one of the things that at least I implemented when I was a student was like an outreach tracker, right? So like a big thing to like quantify impact is like just metrics, right? So like the number of events we did, the number of people who volunteered for the event, the number of people who attended the event, the number of community service hours. So like if I'm a freshman and I started at log, as I'm a high schooler, it's gonna grow if every year I'm adding to it, my teammates are adding to it, my classmates are adding to it. And then when I leave and I'm in college, which I've already graduated, but like, you know, when I was in college, the people that I mentored as a senior, as like a junior, they're taking over that log. So now you can say, all right, over the past 10 years, we've done 392 outreach events, 777 community hours, and we've impacted maybe like, I don't know, 10,000 people. Like that's like those types of initiatives and like documentation and processes that you want to instill in the team so that way they can continue even if you're gone, which is like kind of your question, but not really.
I want to go back to the topic of someone taking the initiative to start outreach. I actually had a little disagreement with one of the members in business within my team the other day because we were wondering like, I wanted to take a more active role in doing outreach. Like I was very inspired by Meghan, by the way, because of what she did as a student. But we wondered also like leading compared to guiding. Like if it's just one person, will sustainability actually be able to happen? Like shouldn't it be more of a team effort? So I was wondering like how should we go about that?
So you guys wanted me to go first? So a lot of times there are people that create new initiatives, and that's cool and that's great, right? Those are always great things to have, but that doesn't always mean that it's going to continue forward. And First says this in the award, right? It's okay if from year to year the goals of your team shift. That's normal, that's okay, right? So if one year you do something and then the next year you don't, that's also okay. And sometimes you need to look back in your team and say, was this something that we enjoyed doing? Was this something that we want to do? And if the answer is no, it's okay to say no.
I think that's as succinctly as we can put it.
Yes?
It's also okay to say, we did it, let's take a year off and see if we can make it even better the second time. Trying to do the same thing year after year after year kind of gets boring after a while, and nobody really comes up with any new ideas. We've always done it this way, just keep doing it. So if you take some time off between those types of events, think about it, and the suggestion you made before about writing down all the questions that come to you and the answers that you gave so that you can see, did you give a good answer? That is part of this. You can see how did you impact, and then look at it and say, okay, how can we do better next, not this year, but next year?
Yes? Yep.
So my question was, how do you guys get more members involved in the events or like excited about the outreach aspect? Because I don't mind to kind of, it's like our core to get them involved?
Changing the culture of your team is very, very difficult, but it's ultimately what you need to do to get more people involved. And like we did fun things, like we did have an outreach tracker, so every week we would shout out the top 10, and then they started it became a competition to them, and then they started to realize that like they actually really enjoyed the work and not just like getting another hour on their tracker. That they were actually able to interact with the community and do the things that are part of our mission, and because of that, they got more engaged and were able to bring their friends and get more engaged too, because they were like, I don't want to do this alone, come with me. And then that kind of mentality kind of brought more people into the fold.
What did you track?
Sorry?
You said outreach tracker. What is it?
So
you track?
the number of hours that they participated
Okay.
in any event.
Oh, all right.
So something we did on 359 is we changed the questions, right? There's a lot of people that like to manufacture, there's a lot of people that like to build. Okay, great. We have a lot of capability of doing things, so we have this thing called special projects where we say, you know, if you want to build something that's going to help the community, you want to work on a side project, come and do it. And we have different projects like making fish hooks, like creating catalytic converter shields, creating spam slicers, because spam is all the rage in Hawaii. You know, we have a whole wide range of things, and we changed the narrative to say, all right, we understand you like building, so why don't you build something for us, and then this other portion of the team, we're going to go off and we're going to go market it. So by changing the narrative a little bit, we were able to engage the entire team.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a couple techniques that we try too. I mean, I'll just list some and, you know, what resonates, you know, hopefully maybe you guys can try, but like one is at every competition, like before we present for Impact, like the night before in the hotel, we have the presenters present to the team, so that way they know what the team is doing. We brought, so like for the 5, by the way, it's not like an uncommon problem, right? I think a lot of teams are like in your boat. Like we had the 5 kids who were doing like Impact, like bring little kids from like the elementary school in to the shop to like talk to and like ask questions to the people, and then all of a sudden like, you know, like they can get more engaged and stuff like that. To Howard's point, we have like initiatives where we would like manufacture things. So like we had days where we would like 3D print keychains or like laser cut name tags and stuff like that. And that's like helping like activate like the more technical people. I personally was like never a fan of like mandating like community service or anything like that. But I have friends on other teams who did mandate it for like, you know, the beginning of the year, and then, you know, you got people who like stuck around because they liked it, and then obviously some people didn't come back. But there's like a bunch of things that you can try to, you know, obviously try and activate like the rest of your team to help.
Maybe.
So, this is going back a little bit to the previous topic, but specifically awards-wise, what do you think is the right balance between new initiatives versus legacy initiatives? And then follow up to, continuing on from that, what do you think is more beneficial for your chances in the award?
So I think there's almost like a misnomer that you always need to have new things and that you always have to you know, push forward different things. I think it's a little bit of a misnomer, and the reason why is that if you're doing the same event year after year after year after year, if you're inheriting this event from, you know, the team that's from way back when, is it really your initiative, or are you riding the coattails of what's past, right? Explain to the judges, how is it new? How have you created it your own thing? And I'll use StuySplash as an example, right? You know, several years ago when we did StuySplash, there were no cameras, there was no recording. It was you came, you saw it, and it was done. You know, today we have recording, we have microphones on us, right? If you guys want, you could go watch this later on, probably on YouTube. And if you explain how you're evolving those year after year events, that's a lot stronger of a case for judges than is, oh yeah, we did it before and we just keep doing it.
Yeah, Impact is focusing on the last 3 years, but you can always talk about initiatives that are long-standing. As a judge, I like to see the mix of not only long-standing ones, but newer initiatives. But when you're talking about long-standing initiatives, I want to know what the current group of students did. What was their, how did they like leave a mark on that event? What did they do specifically? And for newer initiatives, like why did they start, and what are your plans to make them sustainable, or is it just going to be a one-year thing? I think a problem that I've seen often is that teams will just do new initiatives, focus only on new initiatives, and the initiative change every year, and it kind of feels like you're just throwing everything at the wall, and you're not very clear on what your mission is, who your community is, and why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Megan said. Like, I think you need a mix. I think it's really good to see long-term initiatives and how they grow and progress and innovate and change over time, and then thus the impact for that specific like project or that goal. So like whether that's elementary school demo days or political advocacy or summer camps, like those can evolve and be the same umbrella. But then also, obviously, you want to bring in new ideas from new students and adapt to new technologies or new funding or new ideas, right? So I think it's a mix.
Alright, so what I got from that was concrete details and stay focused, don't go everywhere, so find a balance. And like, okay, we get it, concrete details. But I want to go back to what Howard said about spam and like, so what I got from that was you should bait your team members with spam or like other things. So I feel like that's also a very important takeaway, guys. Anyway, Philip, I actually did some research on you. Like, what I gathered from the internet is that 2468 does 14 active initiatives ranging from assistive technology to supporting girls in STEM. How do you guys manage and sustain all of this research? Outreach.
Yeah. First of all, I guess thanks for looking me up. Second is, I mean, I think it goes back to some of the stuff that we talked about earlier, right? Like, so 2468 is very fortunate to have like a very large team and like program, and I think that goes back to what we're saying of like you don't need to force people to do like old outreach events, right? Like as a part of like my class year, like we were kind of the first year where we had a bunch of like women and girls join our team, and because of that, they wanted to also then give the opportunity to other like elementary and middle school like women and girls. So we started like a Girls in STEM initiative, and it was something that they pioneered that obviously someone like me would never understand, right? So to those different points, right, like the assistive technology thing happened after I graduated, but I believe it started because we had students who had physical disabilities and they saw opportunities for technology to help aid and also, assist them and other people with similar disabilities, so they found it meaningful to impact first. So not everyone needs to work on everything, but it's nice to be aware, and then obviously cohesively as a team you support each other, and then that's how you become, one larger entity. This is 2468's initiatives. This is the 2468 umbrella. We can write about it in the Impact Award. We can talk about it in the presentation. So yeah.
Yes.
For teams that are already doing a variety of initiatives, how would you recommend they go out and search for new initiatives? So how would you recommend they continue searching for new things or evolving their old initiatives?
Something that helped us is like talking to other teams to see what they're doing in their communities and kind of getting inspired by the work that they're doing, regardless if their community is similar to ours or not. We like if something was really interesting to us, we would talk about how it would fit in the Philadelphia landscape. Because so many things have been done, so many teams are doing so many cool things. Like talk to other people and see what they're doing, see what other teams are doing, not just in your region, but all over the world. That shows some gaps where you can support.
So 359 has an impact exchange where teams will present to one another, and every year when we do this, I'm learning more and more about different regions and different universe of problems that different regions have. But every so often it's like, wait a minute, that's a good idea. Why are we not doing this? We should just be doing this too. And I'll message the kids on the side. I'm like, hey, write that down. Like, we need to talk about that after this call. And we started to realize that when we're able to share that knowledge, right? Sometimes it is relevant, sometimes it's not relevant. Sometimes you get these ideas of, wait, we should just be doing this. Like one great example was a team was utilizing their local chamber of commerce to find companies and find sponsors. And I'm like, wait, why are we not doing that? We should just do that too.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you like 3 quick answers. The first is what Megan and Howard said, right? Like, I call it impact scouting, but like, you don't have to like talk to teams verbally, right? Like, you can go to the first website and you can see all of the winners from previous years, and you can read about their presentations, and you can read about like their initiatives. You can watch their presentations, and to their point, there's going to be like good ideas that you're like, man, why don't we do that? And you can do that. So that's kind of the first one. The second one is just like brainstorming with the team, right? Like kind of like what we talked about earlier about like getting the rest of the team involved. If you start to, entertain ideas like, hey, we're trying to do this, like, what are your ideas? What do you have for brainstorming? Like let's put the robot aside, but like talk about like our outreach and like our community and what we're in. If they come up with an idea that the team decides to pursue, that probably is going to make them more involved and engaged in general. And then the last one that I'll kind of say is like, I totally forgot it, but it was the best one, which is why I saved it for the last. Give me like 10 seconds and I'll come up with it again. It was, wow, this is so embarrassing.
We can come back to it.
You can come back to it, yeah.
Okay.
But I had a really good one. It was the best one too.
We'll come back to you, don't
Okay.
worry. Well, I do have a question for Howard and Megan while we wait for you, Philip, don't worry.
Alright, thanks.
I understand that you two have been judges for Impact before, and what kind of characteristics stand out to you the most when you judge a team's presentation?
How passionate they are. Like, you don't have to be an incredible extrovert to show how passionate you are. There's plenty of students that are incredibly introverted, but when they talk about something that they genuinely care about, you can see them light up, and it really shows that like the work that they're doing matters to them, and it has an impact on them as an individual and not just as a team.
There have been a lot of incredible students and presentations that I've seen, and what always amazes me is just how passionate a lot of the kids are and just how knowledgeable they are, because I remind people all the time, when you're in the judges room, the judges are not the expert on your team, you are the expert of the team, right? So whether you are or are not confident, it really doesn't matter. You need to project that confidence because you're the person representing that team. And there's a lot of students that we've taught how to fake it until they make it, right? They don't think they're confident, but you teach them to just be confident, and then they just become confident.
Alright, I got my answer, so I'm gonna answer it. So we rewind real quick 3 ways. So one way is reach out to other teams. Second way is like soliciting ideas from the new members. Third way is like some of the best solutions come from problems. So like the way that we would also like talk to and like come up with ideas is we talk to people and find out what are their problems. We talk to elementary school teachers, we talk to like high school teachers, we talk to like people who like have internships, and it's like, all right, what are your problems? Like, oh, well, our kids don't know how to public speak, so maybe we need to do this. Like, oh, in the elementary school, we don't have enough funding to do this. As in high school, oh, well, we don't have enough funding from the government to, have a robotics class. So, well, what's the solution to that? Well, maybe we should then go to the government and ask for more money, and then now we have a political advocacy idea, right? So, like, talking and figuring out what are the problems to then create solution-oriented initiatives is like my third idea and like the best one, which I somehow forgot, but I'm glad I got it to you.
Megan, you mentioned in your other panel of sharing personal stories when presenting to judges. So how would you go on about doing that? And instead of it sounding just like I, how do you turn that into we?
Sorry, what was the last part?
How do you, instead of it being I, like, to turn that into we, since First Impact is more about what we do as a team?
Mm-hmm. So that's basically, the we part is basically the whole presentation. I do like having, when the students feel comfortable sharing something about how the team has impacted them specifically, like why are they doing the work that we're doing, why do they care, and that usually comes from a personal I story. And I know that we're not usually supposed to say I, except needs list, but one part of your presentation where a student like just goes off script and just talks about how important the program is to them, how much change that they've seen, that really is a way to show how passionate like you are about the work, and it really, the judges are human, and so it tugs at the heartstrings.
I know the question wasn't for me, but like I'll also chime in real quick. Like testimonials are a good way, I think, too, because there's like internal impact to like the people on the team, and there's like external impact if like, I don't know, your robot breaks down and then someone comes and fixes it, or like the kids who are attending like the STEM day. Like we always like to collect some testimonials, like not over the top, but just like then we can kind of like weave it into our written submission. Like in our video, we used to have teams that we helped support, or like community organizers or like teachers, like record little snippets and then we put that in the video. So like getting other people to talk about the impact that we had on them is also like another good way to like document and also showcase like the impact.
Thank you.
So how do you define an outreach event or initiative as being meaningful rather than just for statistics?
Can you just repeat that again?
How do you define like an outreach initiative as being meaningful rather than, just for statistics? Like how do you define the success of it?
Well, how do you define success, I think, is probably more important, right? You can change the goalpost to whatever you want, but if you define one thing as success, that's more important, right? And different people have different success stories, right? 694 today, right, their success factor might be, they reach 100, 150 people, right? But your individual I success might be, hey, I learned this, and this topic, right? I I would suggest looking at what was your goal, did you achieve those goals, and was it meaningful to your team or to a community that you're trying to help?
How do you guys pick like your impact presenters?
So I say this a lot, but like you can't teach passion. Like I can teach anybody how to talk. Like that's not the problem. The problem is who's actually passionate about the work we're doing and who can emote it well enough, whether they're extroverted or not, to show the judges like the human side of all of these numbers and stats that you're throwing at them. That's how we pick. We pick on who's really engaged in the work, so they should have like a lot of community service hours in terms of our tracker, but also they should be the ones that are like always eager to try a new initiative, talk to somebody new, learn something new, because you can teach anybody how to do public speaking, but showing that passion and being able to work together is really important. So they have to be able to like take feedback well, be willing to work in a group, because Impact, at least on my team, was a small group of us, so we're working together many hours a day, and if it's the vibe of the group isn't strong and if there's a lot of contention, then it's not going to be a good experience for anybody. So a mix of passion and then also just like being a nice person.
Yeah. I mean, I would also say that like, if you have more than 3 people who want to present, that's like a great problem to have, right? So the way that our team does it is that we did tryouts, and you know we had other students as well as mentors just kind of listen. But to Megan's point, like passion is definitely number one. But when we're trying people out, of course you're going to train the presenters to be the best that they can be, and also teach them new skills. But how much do they actually know the team in general? Maybe like the team history, the current initiatives. They have to have attended some events and be passionate about it. How well are they able to think on their feet for like the Q&A portion? How well are they in the pit? So like, are they authentic and genuine and like talking? Because again, right, like the presenters have the presentation, but you also get questions and answers in the pit from judges who come around. And then ultimately we select our 3 impact leads to do the presentation, but then we also always choose a 4th backup in case someone gets sick. You know, someone decides to take over because, you know, they want to go focus more on the robot. And then there's always ways to get other people involved too, so that way you're not excluding them, because the last thing you want to do is like kind of demotivate someone because they aren't a presenter.
What would that impact tryout like entail?
Yeah, so we asked them a couple questions about like prior Q&A formats. We asked them to describe themselves. We asked them to describe the team. We sometimes, like, I know it changes depending on the team, but sometimes we give them like a prompt ahead of time that they can prepare for it. So like they can draft up like a quick 2-minute presentation, and everyone has the same prompt, so that way you can kind of do a little bit more apples to apples. It just kind of depends, but I mean, to Howard's point, using old questions is good. And then, you know, it's like very first related too, so.
How do you guys feel about incorporating fundraisers into the impact presentation? Because I know in my team, like, a big thing is about spreading first, but then also we can do like fundraiser spreading first. Do you think that's like conflicting at all about charging money for that? Or is that okay to like, you know, incorporate fundraisers into impact? I was just wondering if this.
Why wouldn't it be okay?
Well, like just because you're charging for, like, cause that is like, I don't know, asking for money.
Again, if there's 5,000 different teams in FIRST, there's 5,000 different ways of doing something, right? If you're using something to create funds for your team so that your team can function, right, that is, you know, something about your team, right? You know, if that's something that you guys want to tell the judges, that's your choice, right? But at the end of the day, right, if you're using that as a technique, as an apparatus to spread the message, spread your team, right, that's something that you should share.
Okay. If nothing else, your fundraising, you use that to hone your impact team, your presentation team, because well, I know we do, when we find a new sponsor, the students put together a presentation, they show it to the mentors, and then the students go and present it to the sponsor. We got our CNC machine because the student did such a fantastic job presenting it to the sponsor, so passionate about it, as you guys mentioned before, that the vice president was sitting in the room and said, give them whatever they need. And just because there's one student, he took the project on his own, he wanted a CNC machine, he researched it, he did everything around it, he presented it with the rest of the team after he shared. And because of their passion, they got it. So you could use the fundraiser, like I said, as a practice for your presentation people.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like if you're impacting someone by getting them, like if you're doing a bake sale or if you're doing like something like a STEM camp, or if you're doing something like even if you're charging someone, you are telling people that robotics exists, specifically that FIRST exists. Like they're probably gonna know about it. They may come back and help you. They may give you more money in the future, and you've therefore then impacted them, right? So yeah, I think it's legit.
This question is specifically for Howard, if you don't mind. You mentioned that you were on Team 25 and then now you're remote mentoring 359. I was sort of wondering how that came about because I also remote mentor.
So remote mentoring really came about during COVID. During COVID, right, everything kind of went remote. And I was talking with Glenn Lee, one of the head coach of 359, and Glenn commented that one of the teachers on the team is retiring. They're fully out, they're done, they just want to watch the waves now. So he asked me if I would help him and his team with this portion of the team and do it remotely. And I said, Glenn, sure, I'll do it. And I still remember that first meeting where, we were talking and we were kind of talking in circles. And I would just message the kids directly and I said, is this helping? And they said no. So I stopped the meeting, we reformatted the meeting to make it more helpful. 15 minutes later, I asked them the same question, is this helpful? They said yes, I let it keep going. And it's little things like that that you have to do as a remote mentor to build trust, build respect with the students, because if you don't have that, it's very, very hard to move things forward. But now it's great, I love remote mentoring because, Hawaii is 6 hours different, 5 hours depending on daylight savings. I can do my day job, either from work or go home and I can get on a call with them from anywhere in the world and help them out.
Oh, another question?
Yeah, this one's unrelated, but it's been sort of mentioned, but what do you think is the relationship between money and impact? Because it can facilitate outreach initiatives and whatnot, but many teams don't have a budget for that.
But the question was, how does money help you make bigger impact? So I like to think of funding as like a gas pedal, right? The more funding you have, the more you're able to hit on the accelerator. The less money you have, the harder it is to do that, right? You can have a ton of money and still not be able to do much, and you can do a ton with not much money, right? It's just one aspect to help. It's not the thing.
Right. To your point.
Well, that was to anyone, but that wasn't just for me.
Oh, okay.
Second
Wait.
question.
So any of you guys want to talk about that?
No, Howard said it. Good job, Howard.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Well, actually, I want to add something if you guys don't mind. To your point, I remember Meghan said it's not just like apples to apples, and each team is going to be a little bit different. And I remember you talking about when a team tries to be a model team, you really want to bring out your own uniqueness of the team and not just like try to replicate what Hall of Fame teams are doing. So I think that kind of might be connected to the money thing, because even if your team doesn't have as much money as other teams that have like doing a ton of outreach initiatives, you can still do like what you can find within your community. Oh, I thought you guys were gonna add on.
Oh
no,
No,
that was great.
that was great.
That was great.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that, so like one exercise that Weifen has been leading for us is like a team mission statement, right? We talked about it a little bit earlier in this, like at the very beginning, but like having a mission is important because the mission can definitely adapt based on the people on the team and what's happening in the world and what your team wants to do. But largely, I think your mission is something that also can stay pretty much the same year over year because you're creating impact to achieve that mission and that goal, right? And a mission, vision statement, like those are things that a lot of companies, organizations have, but it's like your North Star, right? So every team should have a different mission statement, right? And it should relate to robotics, it should relate to FIRST, it should relate to that team. But because it's unique to the team, not every team's mission statement is going to be, we're going to inspire people to get involved with STEM and FIRST. Like that's very generic. So I think finding the niche for your team and then sticking with it is, a good way of driving what we were just talking about.
Quick poll for everyone here. Does your team have an established mission statement? Raise your hand if you do. Oh wow, that's great. Okay. Let's see. For any teams that don't have a mission statement, do you guys have any questions So since you guys have so much experience with Impact and like a lot of years with mentoring and doing all that stuff, I'm wondering if you guys can remember if there's one defining moment in your team's journey to Impact, like what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I can start. When I was a student, we started an organization called SACOT, which is the STEM Advocacy Conference of Texas. So it was like a political advocacy organization at the state level. The reason we started it was because we attended a national level conference held by First Team 27, Rush, which is also another Hall of Fame team. But basically, like, I went to like Washington D.C. when I was like a freshman, so like freshman and sophomore year, and it was like super cool because obviously I'm like, wearing a suit for the first time. I'm like talking to like my senators and my representatives, and I'm learning how to like basically talk about first to real people who are like in the news. But like the TLDR of that was just like, they kept saying that like, oh, it's cool that you guys are talking to us now, but like you got to go back to like your local state, like city councilmen, representatives and stuff. So then like our team basically regrouped after that. I was like, wow, we should just like do this at the state level. And they kind of needed like a core team to lead it. And fortunately I was like the person to help lead that core team. But when we first had our conference at the Texas State Capitol, like that for me was like a really like, it's like ingrained in my memory, right? Because like you spend like a year preparing for what is ultimately like a defining hour and like creating like a statewide advocacy initiative that is like still around today, right? But like for me, it's just like we had a problem, which was we didn't have enough funding. We talked to other teams. We found out that they were doing something at the national level. We learned from it. We adapted and changed it to the state level, which is kind of all the things I was talking about before. And then ultimately we acted on it. So all the hard work paid off, and I like remember that like day very, very clearly.
Is this for like the team or us specifically?
I'd say personally you.
Okay. So I think I talked about it earlier, but our first ever outreach event where a really young kid was learning how to code for the first time ever, and for about 15 minutes he was so frustrated because nothing he did worked. And then when he finally was able to make the robot move the way he wanted it to, it's like something clicked in him, and he's told us that it's his first time he's ever been able to program, and that for me changed the trajectory of my life, and then also the culture of the team. There's so many people that could do so many amazing things if they had access to these programs, and so that's why we wanted to work so hard in making sure that robotics was as accessible as possible, because there's so many brilliant people, and if they don't have the tools to succeed, then can they succeed to their full potential?
Yeah, Waialua is a population of 3,000 people. So there's probably about 1,000 kids total, K through 12, right? There's more kids that go to this school than there are people that live in Waialua. And what's amazing when you do a program like this is when I go there and you talk to some of these parents, they're profusely thankful for the amount of time that we spend doing this, that they're able to see the results of how this process has changed their children. There was one parent that said that over the course of this last year working with us, that he's seen his daughter change, not just in confidence, but how she carries herself, how she's able to speak publicly. And that's when I really realized that this is making a big difference to people.
I do have another question, and it's more as a response to perceptions around impact, because I know that when I first started out on the team and I didn't know much about the Impact Award, I kind of just assumed that it was like some outreach thing, and like you get money and then you help people, and I didn't really understand the depth of it. And I feel like as I'm speaking about this, I'm kind of offending all of us. But like hypothetically, if a team only wants to do impact for the award, like they're only seeing it in a competitive way, do you think it's possible for it to be sustainable?
No. No, I mean, I think you should definitely do it for the right reasons, right? Like we've talked about this earlier here today as well, but just like you should invest your time, your energy, and your money in things that you believe in, right? Like it doesn't really matter, because you can do impact and also not win the award but still be really fulfilled, right? So like it doesn't really matter about it, but being awarded impact is a good way for you to tell the rest of First, hey, here's what we're doing, it's really cool, and then also gives a little bit of credibility to help you advance it, right? So like if we were talking about reaching out to other teams earlier, if you win the award, you know, it's now a team that other teams know that, hey, you know, we should probably talk to them. So it's like one avenue, but you know, to the TLDR is there.
Yeah, definitely a line there. Like, I think it could be, you could win for a few years. Will you ever get to the Hall of Fame? It's very hard in general to get to the Hall of Fame. There's what, 37 of us?
Not the one per year.
Something like that.
Yes.
But I think it does a disservice to the specific student, the students involved, because if you're just doing something because you're forced to do it, you don't get to explore things that you're interested in. You don't get to, like, you don't get to explore the things that you're interested in. You don't get to explore what you're passionate about. You're just doing something because you're told to do it. And I think that will eventually fall apart and you won't be winning if that's ultimately your goal.
So, you know, my colleagues here, they're talking about like the individual to team level. But you know, when you think of that like at the global level, there's a lot of teams that chase the previous winners or the previous success. Oh, this team's going internationally and they're doing this. Oh, this team is doing this and they're reaching, you know, 1 million people, right? And they like, oh, we gotta do this. No, that is not how, you know, the Impact Award is supposed to work, right? There are several teams that have won a Hall of Fame and have been inducted to the Hall of Fame, and they do 0 things outside their community. They're hard focused on what is successful for them and what helps their community directly. And obviously there are teams that have expanded that lens and that scope to not just their community, but their state, their country, their world. And you know, there are many different paths to success, but if you try to chase someone else's, you're probably not gonna have that same success.
So, oh, sorry guys.
How do you train students for specifically the Q&A portion of the impact presentation?
So similar to ours, we have questions from the very beginning. So like I've always been in the room as a student and then as the adult observer. So I have a list of questions from every single competition we've ever been in. It's a lot of practice. I will go through our submission and write every potential question possible. Like I will take a step back and pretend I know nothing about the team. So like I remember one year we were asked something, like we had a throwaway line and the judges hammered in on that for like the whole presentation. So like they need to know everything about our team, the history, like why we do things, how we do things, but also like every single part of the submission. So they should be actively engaged in writing and creating the submission because they need to know every part of it, and it's just asking question after question. I've brought in friends that are not first people so that they can have that outsider perspective, because a lot of judges aren't first alum, so they aren't super ingrained into it like we may be. But so they'll ask like seemingly obvious questions to you, but from an outsider's perspective, it makes no sense. It's a lot of practice.
Yeah.
We will do marathon Q&A, and we will like do one question for like 15 minutes sometimes. And it's all about trying to shape the answer to be as clean as we can and concise as we can, right? If you have 5 minutes of Q&A and it takes you 1 minute to answer every question, you've answered 5 questions. If you can get that down to 30 seconds, you've answered 10 questions. If you get it down to 20, 15, so on and so forth, right? And the more time you have to answer questions, the more context that judge has for your team. And we practice a long time to get those answers to be concise.
Yeah, we also dig really deep, so like it teaches the students to kind of start, like, because they start vague and then they get more detailed and more detailed and more detailed. So we keep asking them questions until they start learning to answer as detailed as possible from the very beginning.
Yeah, I hate when teams answer and it's like very handwritten, like, oh yeah, this was an amazing thing, everybody loved it. I'm like, well, how do you know that? Like, give me some more context, give me some metrics here. Because when you use those kind of hand-wavy things like, oh yeah, this was a great event, I'm like, well, how do you measure that?
Yeah, I mean, they said it correctly. I think that the short answer is like you have to practice a lot, and it's not just what you practice, but also how you practice. You know, they'll ask you questions, like the judges will ask questions that dive into things you talked about. They'll want topics about things you maybe haven't discussed. They might ask for like personal anecdotes. They might ask you questions that don't really matter, or like are non sequiturs, or they might ask you like, where are you going to college? And like that's an answer you want to give pretty concisely because it doesn't really tell them too much about the team, so that way you can talk more about team stuff. So you just have to be like, you know, what are you practicing, and also how do you practice.
I saw another hand.
Would you recommend making an impact video? And if you did do it for your team, did it give you like any sort of advantage towards
completely optional, and we didn't do a great job at it. We waited until the last minute to do it. So I don't think any of us were really happy with the output that we saw at Chance. But if you want to do it, similar to every other portion of your submission, put your all into it. Don't be like us and wait until the last minute and throw something together.
Yeah, I mean, I think teams should do it. As long as you have the time, and to Megan's point, as long as you create an output that you're proud of putting your name on, like your team's name, but also your name, I think you should do it. I think the difference though is that, like, in my opinion, the executive summaries and the essay should complement each other. Like, you shouldn't give the same answers, but they should like kind of talk about different things, or they should support each other. Versus the video, I think because it's not necessarily judged in the same way, the video can have overlapping topics, so it's more kind of like a summary as opposed to like a complimentary piece, if that makes sense.
The video becomes great promotional material for your team later down the line. So don't think of it just like for the award. Think of it, how else can I use this video for my team? Is it something that I can give to potential sponsors? Is it something that I can give to parents? Is it something that I can give to my school board so they understand more about our team?
I also don't know if this is true. I don't think there's a deadline right now with the video. I think you put it on a flash drive and you give it to the judge.
It's not on a flash drive anymore. There's been a lot of changes this year, so make sure you're paying attention to the definition changes.
There you go.
There's also like the optional documentation form, but for the video, it's a link through the submission.
Got it. Okay. So my answer was going to be you can iterate on it, but don't listen to me. Listen to Megan.
Just really loved having you guys here today with us. Like, I feel like I learned a lot. I hope you guys learned a lot. Like, even though we are trying for impact competitively, like, we do want to win, we're also doing it just because we love helping other people and we love what First brings us and the community. So, like, always just try to find the balance. And if you guys have any more comments.
No, I mean, feel free to reach out if you guys need anything, but good luck, and hope you guys have a great season.
3, 2, 1. If you go to rebelanswers.com, we have our entire submission. There's annotations of our thought process as we wrote things, our binder packet, the videos. So we had every question written down and the answers, and the students kind of talk through their answers in a video, and our entire presentation. So that's also a resource that you can use.
359, we have impact exchanges. We're going to host a couple of them during build season next year. So if you monitor our socials, you can sign up and you can see ours and other presentations from around the world.
And the Hall of Fame is going to come out on the social media channels about the definition changes, just to make sure that people are aware of them and the thought process behind them. So feel free to look at all those social media accounts.
For 694, come find us in the pits if you guys see us at competitions. We love talking to people.
That's a great way to end it.